Hello, everyone. Today I want to tell you a story. What do you picture it? 1984. We're living in Canada, my family. Sorry, we're living in Kenya, my family. A little bit of history. My parents were refugees from South Africa, left the apartheid regime in the early 60s, got married, had kids. At this time, in 1984, we are living in Kenya. And our parents are thinking now of immigrating. And we're sitting around in the living room, and our parents basically said we have three choices where we want to immigrate: America, Canada, or Australia. For some reason, we picked Canada. Thinking way back then, that was, over 40 years ago. I can't remember why we picked Canada, but certainly Canada as a reputation, as a country, had a good reputation. Canada had laws, the institutions had good schools, institutions were respected. Um, Basically, if you took someone to court, you could expect justice. This was 1984. Things were looking good. Canada was on the way up. Even Canada, as a nation, militarily had a good reputation as a peacekeeping force back then, and still had a good reputation as a good military. So Canada was highly regarded in the world. If you traveled abroad as a Canadian versus as an American, if you had a Canadian flag on your knapsack, people treated you well. If you had an American flag on your knapsack, there may be some issues. So Canada was loved. And so we said, we want to go to Canada. This was 1984. Now, having been here 40 years and looking at Canada now in 2025, I wonder if we would have been as quick to say Canada at this time. We may have said Australia. I don't know if we would have said the US, but we may have said Australia. The question is, what has happened to Canada? Is Canada still a serious country? And is Canada sliding? Is Canada drifting down? No, no, I'm going to be fair. I mean, Canada is still a stable country. There's still people who want to come to Canada. There's still people who are, the immigration lists are long. People want to come here. It's still one of the top countries out in the world. But it has lost its footing, it has lost its place. Back in 2012, there was a happiness list that came out of the happiest countries in the world. It started in 2012. And Canada in 2012, I believe, was the sixth happiest place. And it moved from five to six to five, six to five. But starting 2018, 2019, it started sliding down. And if you look at the 2026 ratings, Canada has slipped into the 20s. I think 22nd happiest country to live in the world. Again, if we're talking about over 200 countries, 22 isn't bad. But why are we slipping? Why have we slipped that badly? If you look back, 1984, in the 80s in Canada, yes, the 80s were kind of bad for interest rates and all that. Interest rates were high and all that, but you could still buy a home in Canada. As long as you had a good job, if you had a good job, people working, you could still buy a home. I think Pierre Poilievre said back in the day, 1950s, 60s, it's not 80s, but I think he said over 50 years ago, if someone was working as, say, a waiter and a barber and a waiter, they could both buy a home. Now, a lawyer and an accountant will find it hard pressed to buy a home. I have three kids. We have three kids. Our daughters live in the East, in Eastern Canada, and they both have homes because in Eastern Canada, the homes are less expensive and they'll be able to afford them. But you go into central and southwestern Ontario, where my son lives, he's having a hard time. It's going to be really difficult for him to buy a home. Out in Vancouver, like out west, forget about it. You got to be a millionaire to buy a house. Okay? So this is the contrast now between the standard of living in 1984 to the standard of living in 2025. This is what has happened to Canada, right? Young people, like my kids, who are doing everything right, went to school, good jobs, but they're still falling behind. So, I mean, when people can't find it hard to build a life together, they start to lose belief in the system itself. That's what happens. Back in 1984, productivity in Canada was higher. Canada had a good GDP. GDP was growing because of productivity, right? We were mining. Canada was getting the oil out of the ground, getting the oil to market, and people were producing things. RIM, Research in Motion. Remember the BlackBerry? That was in Canada. And there were other companies as well that people were doing and making things here in Canada. Productivity was great. Now, GDP grows because of population. Trudeau increased our immigration rate, increased our population, and so the increase in GDP, yeah, that happened, but that's fake. GDP per capita was the lowest in the G7. It was brutal because it wasn't real. It wasn't a real GDP due to productivity, right? So there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of frustration. I mean, we saw the 10 cities growth because of the housing struggles here in Canada. It was terrible. If we were looking now in Kenya, looking at what's happening in Canada in 2025, we'd be wondering, like, would we be able to get housing? Would we be able to, how's the healthcare struggles going on? We would be wondering if it indeed would have been worth it. Crime, 1984. I mean, if you look at the crime rates, certainly overall crime seems to be lower now, but violent crime is up. Violent crime is up in Canada now versus 1984. Series versus 1992, we're talking about crime rates, it's up now, violent crime. So again, Canada is still a safe country. Let's not make a mistake. Compared to other countries, we're still safe. But if we're making that comparison, America, Canada, Australia, might we have chosen Australia? Right? If we're looking at trends, right? And I talked about this kind of earlier, happiness and hope, right? In 2012, Canada was 6th. In 2026, the 25th happiest people in the world, right? Why? Things are more expensive. People are not happy. People are struggling. Living paycheck to paycheck. I saw a stat that half the people in Canada live paycheck to paycheck. Food banks. I mean, food banks are bare because people aren't donating as much, and the lineups are still out the door right now. This wasn't the case in 1984. Canada is on a drift downward. It's quite serious, and so Canada's now more expensive. Grocery prices, the standard of living, affordability crisis. We're in an affordability crisis. Way more expensive now. Right? And I would say we're even more divided now. I don't know if you saw the NDP convention, but it was just a gong show. It was terrible. I'm talking about these cards that they had dividing people. People wanted to speak at the mic if you were of a certain intersectionality, then you could speak first. So yeah, white Christian man, back of the line, brah. Just dividing. It was just terrible. Just terrible. And this a sign of what Canada, the direction that Canada is going. Like, I hope not. I just truly hope not. So right now, with everything even that Trump is doing, America is growing. It's got a more dynamic economy, right? People in America as well, if you look at the happiness standings, they're not, Canada still, Canadians are happier than Americans, but America's economy is pretty dynamic. Australia right now, resource rich. I mean, Canada is also resource rich, but we're not using our resources properly. Permits takes way too long to take permits, to get permits to dig things, and it's just terrible. It's easier in Australia. So we might have chosen Australia if we're doing it today, right? I don't know if we would have picked Canada, and I'm not saying that lightly. It's kind of sad where Canada has gone. So what can we do as Canadians? How do we get this country back on track? What can we do? I mean, with Carney now poaching um, parliamentarians from conservatives, poaching people from one from the NDP to get his majority. When I say now we need to vote, one thing we can do is vote. Can we vote? It becomes very discouraging. This is another reason why I start saying, is Canada serious? We're going to start undermining the voting system, the only thing that we feel we can rely on, we can really trust on to get parliamentarians, people out of office. Does it work? This is another reason why we're all like drifting down. It's not cool. It's not good. But we've got to remain optimistic. I know this sounds kind of like a little dire kind of video that I'm doing, but we're not at the point of no return yet. We're certainly not at the point of no return, but guys, we've got to get serious. Carney's going to get his majority. We're going to see what happens. And if Canada continues to drift, to go down, in other words, we have a shrinking economy. We're the only economy with only G7 country with a shrinking economy in the last quarter. That continues. Oh my. If you don't see resources moving, if you don't see housing starts increasing, you don't see violent crime dropping, there's so many things. The gong shows that we're seeing at the NDP, get rid of that nonsense. And let's just treat people based on their character, based on merit. Can we do that? Okay, well, I don't know what you guys think about my little rant. This is my little rant. It's kind of sad as a Canadian. I've been here now for came in 1984, so 42 years. Love this country. It's given me a beautiful wife, given me 3 great kids, given me 2 great grandkids, and more to come. I made my life here. I'm staying here. I'm dying here. But I also want things to improve for my grandkids, for my kids, for my grandkids. Cannot continue on this slide. We just can't. But that's my thoughts. I think there's hope if Carney doesn't do anything better, then we got to get him out and see if Poilievre can do better. But in the meantime, guys, let's stop relying on government for our lives. This is your life. If you've got something that you want to do, then do it. Be productive. Right? Too many of us wait for the government to do things for us. And a lot of the time, the government isn't there for you. Isn't there for you. You are there for you. So live your life, do well, do the best you can with what you got. And hard work does get rewarded. It does get rewarded. And we've just got to see, that's what I guess the job of the government is, to make sure that the atmosphere, the things in place do reward hard work. That they do. That no one is unfairly treated. All right. Looking forward to hearing from you guys. That's my rant. Let's get Canada back on track, so that when people are at their dinner tables wondering, where do you want to move? Canada, US, Australia, everyone says, we're going to Canada. It's the best country in the world. Talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.